Oh,
Hey, I see Emmanuel right there. I just invited him to the stage. Hey, everybody. This is Michael from Matcha. Sorry, I didn't unmute earlier, but I'm just here for repping the Matcha account. Happy to be here and excited for the spaces.
hi, Michael.
What's good, Lito?
Crazy day today, no?
Yeah, you're no kidding, bro.
Lots of volatility.
Yeah, but yeah, volatility rocks. So that's the good stuff. That's what we're here
Yeah,
for.
I'm happy. I was out of all my trades on
Oh,
leverage
good.
and got
Yep,
back
I
in
didn't have
on the
anything open,
dips.
which I'm happy too. Yeah, these
Yeah,
kind of days are healthy, but yeah, scary if you're got open stuff going. So, hey, we got Lenny on stage. What's up, Lenny? I'm gonna go back on mute, guys.
Hey everyone,
hey there, how's it going?
everything good here. Excited for the space today.
Same here, same here. Apurv, I let you set the stage. Oh, it seems we might have a little technical issue, or the host has a little technical issue. If that's the case, no worries. I'll just take over, but I'll just give him a few more seconds. I've been saying Twitter text is really wanky. All right, all right. Then yeah, I'll just take over as host. Yeah, so super good to be here. Very very excited to discuss this awesome partnership that we've got going and that you guys announced. Maybe yeah, like always, let's just begin with introductions. Lenny, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, hope you can hear me well. So a bit myself. I'm gonna be pretty brief as we're probably gonna want to spend most of the time talking about Socken and Matcha partnership. But I joined the fantastic team at ZeroX, I think a bit less than 2 years ago, where I lead the Matcha product, which today we will explore all together in depth actually. I think I come from a Web2 background where I've navigated actually different industries over the years, from finance to socials, etc., before getting into the Web3 rabbit hole. I think I started around like 2017 getting into it, and I spent a few years more on the user side of things, playing around, being part of the community, and then, yeah, a couple of years ago, I decided this was time for me to, getting into it from the product perspective and being into the trenches with everyone else. And yeah, here I am.
And what a better product to build than Matcha, right? It's I mean, everyone in crypto thinks it's one of the most beautifully executed kind of UI UXs in crypto. So I'm sure it must be fun working on that. Yeah, on my side, I'm Lito. I'm on the BD side at Socket, and yeah, I've been in the crypto space for a while now. Joined 2017, was just fresh out of university back then, and yeah, quite interested in like finance and tech, and so the intersection of both made a lot of sense. Had a very short job at PayPal actually. That was my first job, but yeah, during that time, kind of discovered crypto with all my colleagues there, and we're discussing like ICOs and so on. And since then, I've never left the space. Actually, the opposite. I've only doubled down each year, getting more invested, both financially and emotionally. And yeah, been having various kind of jobs in the space, and also lead like an education platform called cryptotesters.com. So have a big passion for onboarding people to crypto. I'm sure we'll talk more about that later. So that's why I wanted to mention it. But yeah, mostly doing BD at Socket and just so yeah, a few words on Socket. We're a full stack interoperability platform. That's how I would describe us today. So we have this bridge aggregation product, which is integrated into Matcha, but we also offer other interoperability solutions to teams. Anything that is cross chain, anything that improves cross chain UX is what we offer. So yeah, that's me and Socket in a nutshell. Maybe Lenny, you can tell us a little bit about what Matcha is on your side.
Of course. I mean, super excited. I can probably talk about Matcha for the next like 3 hours, but to avoid to hijack the entire space, I'm going to try to be kind of straight to the point. So what is Matcha? How we like to define it is that it's the search engine for token and liquidities. And by the way, if you want to experience it, and go to matcha.xyz, and I know that you're gonna be like amazed by the product. So why is it the search engine for token and liquidities? So you when you get to matcha.xyz, the first thing you're gonna see is a search box, okay? And you can search for any ERC20 token for any EVM we support. We are on 9 different actually EVM chains. Any token you will search will show up, from the most famous one, or what we want to call like blue chips, for example, to any long tails token. Even if tomorrow you decide to create a new ERC20 just for fun, we actually index any token within 15 minutes of its creation, right? So you just can create an ERC token, 20 token, and then in 15 minutes you can go to Match and search for it, and it's going to be there. I mean, it's fantastic. So once you look for the token you're interested into, probably the first thing you want to do is that you want to then swap it and start to get into the kind of DeFi life cycle. And we make it extremely seamless and simple to perform your swap, right? So we actually provide the best on-chain price. And actually, how do we do that? And that is where the aggregation nature of Matcha come from. We aggregate more than 100 liquidity sources across all supported EVM ecosystem. We have our proprietary routing algorithm, which kind of imagine, like these kind of blood vessels, like the liquidities on chain, and we scan all of it, and we understand what is the best path for the best capital efficiency and the best trade execution for your swap. So actually, I always say this, but there is virtually no reason to trade on a single specific decentralized exchange. I mean, you can go to Matcha. You are probably like, we already indexed that and aggregated that decentralized exchange, and maybe you were using, or you were interested in too, or you think there is liquidity for the token you want. And you get all the benefit of the aggregation, right? As I said, we're going to find the best path. It could be by finding, taking your trades between different multiple dexes. We tap into off-chain liquidity. We are our RFQ system, which actually, by the way, quite often provide a better price than what you can find on-chain and on a dex. We have, a gasless experience. So you can, forget about, do I have enough native token to pay for this trade or this other trade. We take care of it. We take care of all these complex concepts like MEV, gas optimizations, etc., etc. And we have the lowest revert rate on the industry. So at the end of the day, our mission in Matcha is to be the most widely used marketplace for tokens. And how do we want to do that? Actually, is by creating the most frictionless experience for finding and trading tokens. So we are really, really, really stressed about in Matcha about this kind of seamless and frictionless experience. We take care about the UX a lot. We think there is a huge space of improvements for UX in Web3. That's how we will onboard the next generation of users. And yeah, that's in a nutshell what we do in Matcha.
Beautiful. And yeah, I agree. This feature of like indexing tokens as soon as they launch, especially as we get into sort of like meme coin season and so on. I think it's a super underrated feature, right? Like it's surprising how many kind of wallets and decentralized exchange interfaces there are where you need to like import your tokens kind of manually by pasting a contract address, and then it shows you some huge warning signs, and yeah, it's kind of repelling if you're like not really familiar with crypto and you just want to trade some of these tokens outside of, even that doesn't even need to be a meme coin, right? Even like outside of the top like 100 or something. It's quite an adventure actually to trade this on Uniswap, and on Matcha they're all just super, they're well labeled. There's even a little description on the project. It's super cool. And actually, when I entered the UI here on matcha.xyz, it's quite striking actually how different the user experience is kind of you know kind of conceptualized. Right? You really start with just a search bar, almost looks like Google or something, but for tokens, right? Where people just put in the token name, and that's what they start with. And it's not, you don't need to first select the chain and I don't know, like the input token, the output token, and so on. It's really just like, what do you want? I really like that. What was the inspiration for that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, ultimately, how we try to think about things is in first principles, right? So, what is the first thing, right? What is the intent from a user at the beginning of any of the interaction in Web3? They're looking for something. That was basically the basic premises from which we started. And so, if we wanted to fulfill that need, we wanted to create the experience around that. Now, there are a lot of products around that are more or less, looking the same, where open the product itself and you already get, this swap, module, if you will, kind of force in you. But at the beginning, what you're looking for is probably informations, right? And so building the experience around that, for us, it was core. We actually iterate and will iterate more and more and more around our token search. It's not only about, looking for a token, but, what kind of information do you need when you're looking for their tokens, right? So we stress a lot around things like we want to show you the trending token of the moment. Maybe you don't have something in mind specifically, you just want to navigate a bit what is hot today. We really can, when you're looking for your into the search box and you open it, you can see already the tokens you have with the amounts you have, so that you already know what you can sell, if you will, or from what baseline you're starting from in your swap journey. And so ultimately, the inspiration was, how do we make the navigation of liquidity and tokens as simple as possible without forcing any UX, right, to the user, with a bias of what they want to do. So for us, the navigation, the search was the basic premises of where basically around which we build the entire product.
That makes so much sense. Are you also exploring sort of social features? Like I'm thinking, for example, like a feed where you see maybe where some prominent ENS people, ENS holders are, have just aped into this token or something, some like explore tab, anything along those lines, or is it more like limited to, just what's trending in the search bar?
That's a fantastic question. So actually, we have been thinking through things like social for a lot, right? I mean, from a social standpoint, you can think there are many things you can do, many features. It could be some social embedded into search. It could be social embedded into the trading experience, etc., etc. We have a lot of ideas in our backburn of folder of ideas in Matcha, and I will not kind of spoiler anything for the future, but we have a really strong roadmap for upcoming months, and you're gonna see some interesting stuff happening in this space actually. But yeah, this is in top of our mind.
Excited. And yeah, you mentioned, that it doesn't really make sense for people to use any decentralized exchange in particular, but that it's always superior to use an aggregator. I totally agree. I think it's super surprising how many people still use like Uniswap or I don't know, even Sushi like directly. It must be a question of people just being uninformed. Hopefully, we'll see this less and less. But yeah, would be super curious to hear how many people actually do trade through Matcha. What is sort of like the market share or any stats like that, and also B, what do you think is kind of missing to get there or to get like to a like stronger penetration, let's say.
Really good questions. So in terms of numbers, I think in the last 30 days, we have more than 16,000 users or wallets, how we want to see it, trading on Matcha. We did more than, I think, $700 million in terms of value traded through Matcha. And ultimately, in terms of, I think to circle back on what you said at the beginning, right? What do we need to do to penetrate more the market? Ultimately, we observe, and anyone can go to some analytics platform like, let's say, DeFi and stuff like that, and you can see that the lion's share of the market share of swap is done by DEXs, by far. And why is that? Well, I agree with your first statement. I think awareness is a big component. I think historically in Web3 in general, we have struggled a bit with, the, business development of things, understand how we can put our product in front of the users, how we can create this engagement around it. And what happened because of that is that people default to, I guess, a pure, brand awareness, right? Which makes total sense. So why people go to Uniswap? Of course, it was the first, AMM, the most famous one, and this is kind of association with trust. And so what we are trying to do a lot in Matcha, and that's how we are planning to onboard and the next user or actually increase our market share, is to really bring awareness on the product from a trust standpoint. Matcha can be trusted even more than any other like DEXs on chain. We try to advertise as much as possible the benefits of using Matcha versus a single DEX. We talked about price, and for example, we observe so many times people that actually trade on Matcha and save so much money comparing to trading on a single DEX, that sometimes I'm even surprised and like, why anyone would even not think about trading on a DEX aggregator versus a single DEX if you can save so much money. And it's not even about money only per se. I mentioned before like things like trade execution, like things like reverts, gas, but also think about that as an example, right? Like Uniswap of the world, and now you need to pay a 15 bips fee, right? If you want to trade on Uniswap. I mean, you can come to Match, and if you use our standard mode, you can trade the same identical liquidity on Uniswap for free. I mean, if you think about that, there's not much better, you can do in terms of value prop. Now, the point is always the same. It doesn't matter if you have a fantastic value prop, you need to bring this value prop in front of the users. And that's what, we are really iterating a lot over time. It's expanding our value proposition. Today, we're going to talk about cross-chain, and that's one way we're doing that, right? Mm-hmm. And then the second layer, it's you can see much in the last months have been like started to grow a lot into how we do communication, marketing and things like that, because ultimately, that's the only way for us to bring this product in front of our users.
Right. Yeah, actually, that brings me to another point that I wanted to raise. You mentioned reaching or getting this message in front of users. Is there any particular kind of method or channel that has worked particularly well for you to do that, or is it mostly just doing the product right, building new features, or is it, have you noticed that a certain way of communicating, or maybe even paid ads, or how do you get this product, which frankly is amazing and has all these benefits that we just talked about, and we haven't even gotten to the cross-chain part yet, but even just the no fee, the search, like all of these things, how do you make sure this gets in front of enough users?
Why is that a good question? Because this is the core question. I think that ultimately we are experimenting with different channels. All the one you mentioned, from social strategies on Twitter to start to play with paid ads and podcasts and whatever. What I believe right now, I believe in the power of compounding effects. I don't think there is one silver bullet, that works, that will bring you that 10x growth just because of that specific growth channel. What I believe is that the compounding effect of all these things, and slowly but surely hammering the nail of communication, and positioning, if you will, in the space, in the mind share of users, is the only way to grow. Now, this is not probably a sexy answer, because of course everyone wants to know, how do we grow fast and hard? But the reality is that, based on our observation, the only way to get in front of the users, to increase market share, just slow compounding growth. You need to try all these things. You need to try quests. You need to try to do a classic partnership post on Twitter. You need to try debank. And I think by adding these small increments through all the channels, that's where you get actually to the mind share of the community. And if you have actually a silver bullet, I would be more than happy to know it and try it. But that's what we observe. Compounding is the way to go.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, actually. And I think the reason that is the case is that the strongest kind of marketing tool in crypto is probably word to mouth. And so, every single user that you manage to reach through a quest, a Twitter space like this, every single one, if your product is good, people talk about like net promoter scores, for example. Like, if your product has like a good net promoter score, like each user that you manage to reach can convert in like 10 additional kind of users for Matcha. And so I think, yeah, exactly like you say, I think until now, when I see kind of the projects that have a lot of users, that have like a good product, they have a good brand. So I would say that's communications, right? They're like kind of crypto natives, and represent the brand in a way that resonates well with crypto users. And then, yeah, lastly, just kind of being out there, right? I think at some point we'll see, we will probably see more and more, like more traditional ways of reaching people as this space grows. But up until now, like crypto brands couldn't even run ads at all, like on channels like Google and so on. So that's why up until now it has been like this, and it will continue to be like this for a while. I feel also for like I feel like the more centralized in crypto product is, the more likely it is they can use like traditional channels, for example, like a Coinbase.com, right? They will run ads because you can sign up to Coinbase as like a user that doesn't know much about crypto without needing to know much. There's no kind of learning barrier or something. But like for any decentralized application, it almost wouldn't make sense to acquire a user without knowing they actually know what they actually have a wallet installed, for example. So yeah, in absence of everyone kind of knowing the basics of crypto, I think we'll refrain to do these kind of like Twitter kind of communication strategies and so on.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot agree more with what you said, and this is actually why Web3 and crypto is hard. I mean, we have a lot of complexities to handle, right? On the infrastructure layer, the application layer, but people also forget about the growth layer, right? And so when we think about the growth layer, what you said is correct. Like, I mean, the channels we normally use in Web2 are not accessible most of the time, if at all. And the result of that is that we need to be more creative, right? We need to kind of think outside the box. We need to experiment more. We don't really have a strong baseline to start from. And as a result, right, there is a bit of this kind of chasing of what is the right approach. But this is also why, while it's hard and it's complex, this is also kind of, the beauty and the excitement of this industry, where, we are resetting, I guess, the expectation on all direction, and growth is one of them. You said it correctly. Ultimately, the product needs to have a strong, amazing value and a strong, amazing UX. That's actually why we obsess so much about UX in Matcha. And that's why actually the feedback we get from all these rematches, like it's so simple and seamless to navigate the product, but at the same time, if you cannot bring this product in front of other users, right, this is hard, right? Like, no matter how good the product is. And so redefining the way we do growth in Web3, it's a fascinating topic. I think probably like 2, 3, 4 years from now, we're gonna look back and think, oh my god, like how were we doing this, these things. But this is also what I think it's fascinating, right? Like, if you want to be into kind of the trenches of growth, if you want to really defining what the future baseline gonna look like, I think this is the right place to be.
Totally. Yeah, we should probably look back at like early internet products and how they marketed their products when no one knew how to use the internet. Maybe there's some lessons there. But shifting gears a little bit, tell us a little bit about this new amazing cross-chain swap feature at Matcha. Maybe a little bit about what motivated building it in the first place. Was it something that you felt was missing? Was it very requested by your community? How did you get there?
Nice. So I think if we go back to what I said at the beginning around what is the goal in Matcha, right? Like, what is our mission is to actually be in this the most widely used marketplace. But the second part was by creating most frictionless experience, right? So going back to this part of frictionless experience, there is no bigger friction today than navigate, the Web3 liquidity across chains. I mean, this is where the pain, there are a lot of pains, but this is, where the pains start to grow to unbelievable heights, right? So we know that currently we live in a multi-chain, fractured kind of ecosystems, right? We have, mainnet basically priced out a lot of users. I mean, while I always say this, while for us or for some people, we think that paying $20, $30 gas for a transaction is not a lot. For a lot of people, I mean, it's a huge entry barrier. And as such, we saw the, growth of, for example, L2s, right? Where it's an alternate L1s, to be frank, where, transacting is more accessible to everyone. But this also fractured liquidity. And now you have a different ecosystem with different products, and you want to probably navigate between the one that you are interested into for whatever reason. And this navigation, it's a pain. So actually, Matcha cross-chain, thanks to the partnership with Socket team, allows anyone to move between chain in a simple way. I always go back to this kind of word of simple, because ultimately that's what we focus on, and that's what we think Web3 should feel like, a simple product. Because in Matcha, via Socket, we abstract all the complexity of the bridge selection, the user experience, all the weird and complex components that are tied to that experience. And so we use Socket API in this case to do the heavy lift on the backend, on understanding what the best route that is, what available routes are, and then we build on top user experience that actually leverage these backend work and make it simple and accessible to anyone. So again, we continuously stress about the user experience. And I remember, when we were, researching around this topic, to be honest, we researched for a long time, right? And I would argue, for many years. And so why did we decided to actually launch today? Actually, last week, to be precise. Is that because we felt it was the right moment? Ultimately, in the past years, looking back, in the cross-chain space, we learned a lot. A lot of mistakes were done, and I think that the technology is mature and stable enough right now that was the time for us to present this and surface this to our user, right? So when we were researching that, we thought, okay, we want to surface it, but what are the things that are painful that we want to solve for the users? And there were two aspects that surface every single time, in user interviews and researches and stuff like that, which were trust and time. So trust, it's because, again, with cross-chain and bridges, there is unfortunately this kind of feeling that due to, unfortunately, hack in the past and stuff like that, of lack of security, right? Like people don't really feel comfortable without that. But because, as I said, the industry learned a lot. I think we are in a better space right now. Socket specifically, helps us curate the bridge selection, helps us understand, the security of every single bridge and solution, and the architecture of smart contracts, for example, that Socket use, minimize user exposure and risks to bridge exploit. So for us, was really a really good solution and partnership from a trust and security standpoint. And for the time issue, that was an interesting point, because there is nothing more frustrating and stressful in cross-chain, that when you need to send your valuable tokens to another chain and sit and wait, hoping that basically you're gonna get the tokens on the other side. And so this is part of the foundational, of course, design of how bridges work. Some are faster, some are slower, but ultimately this is a kind of a pain that we wanted to try to solve, again, on the application side. So we tackle this friction in kind of two parts. For example, we are transparent on the expectation of time since the beginning. At every step, we highlight, what the expected time and how we get this expected time. Again, we use Socket estimation algorithm on, that basically help us basically give a realistic expectation to our user and accompany the user in every single step. And once the trade is submitted, we leverage, our fairly new, a couple months, trade history feature where, again, going back to the value prop of Matcha and things like that, you submit your swap, and what then? Well, you can open your trade history Matcha, and you can see the status of your transaction. You can deep dive at what point is it's in progress. You can see when it's completed. You have your time there, etc., etc. So it's all about getting this stressful point for the user and using design and product choices to decrease this stress. And Sockets API helps us a lot actually to address those pain points throughout the life cycle of the cross-chain swap for the users.
Love it. And yeah, I really feel like you guys, like both our companies really have in common, I think, that we really obsess over user experience, right? Like, I think there's not enough projects that really think deeply about this. And I have really noticed this, like recently when I onboarded a friend, into crypto, and he told me he had already used crypto in like the last bull market, 2021, and then he'd kind of left for a while, and now he's kind of reactivating all his wallets and so on. And he said, wow, things have really gotten better, right? Like before, they, for example, he had to enter chain IDs into MetaMask to use another chain, right? Like can you think how crazy that is? Like asking someone who doesn't even know the basics of how a blockchain works to like enter a chain ID just to use like Polygon or something, right? Like this nowadays with like better products, better wallets is like just happening automatically in the background, that like the network is sort of switched and so on. So many things like this kind of have happened and have made me realize that things have gotten better. And I think to a big extent it's thanks to products like Matcha actually, which are like bundling a lot of functionality of like different protocols or features into just one interface, right? We talked about discoverability, swaps, and now like bridging everything from the same place that people kind of know and trust. Because I notice this very often. Like when I want to do, I have an intent, right? Like I'm thinking, I see on Twitter like someone is mentioning this project on like Base, and so or like let's say a token, and so the intent in my head is like, okay, I want to maybe buy this token on Base, and then I map out like the steps that I need to do in order to get there, right? And then if it's like 3 or 4 steps, and there's like even different services that are kind of needed in order to get there, then there's a high chance that I leave it there. It's just a thought, but I won't actually do it. Like the more friction there is, the less likely it is I will actually kind of go through with it. So, and on the opposite side, if there's like just one tool that I can use to do it like end to end, then I do it. And I think that's like the power of UX, right? And that's the power with like cross chain swaps. So you can go like straight from one token to the other token on the other chain. I'd be super curious. Yeah, first of all, maybe your thoughts on this, but also like how has this been received since you launched it?
Yeah, I mean, I cannot stress this enough, that we do not spend enough time in Web3 thinking about removing frictions and user experience. Like a lot of times I feel that user experience is just like as a throwing this acronym or this name around the place, but not really without backing it with a lot of depth. So imagine, I always say like imagine that a user it's in a is using a DEX to do a swap. Then, as you said, maybe learned about a token they want to, or a project they want to get into. And they found out that the token or project is another chain, is not supported by the DEX, or the liquidity available is not on the DEX they're using. So now what? So now they have to think about, let me Google, what kind of liquidity is available on what DEX. Now you discover a second product you want to use, but now you get to the problem of, wait a second, how do I move my fund from where I have them to this other chain? So now you Google again, and then you get into the world of bridges, and you're like, oh my God, what is going on? I don't understand any of it. And actually, you shouldn't. Actually, what you should do is to go into one product that allows you to move across your, what I call your DeFi life cycle, right? Accompany you around that life cycle, and you can do everything with few clicks from the same space. Actually, that's why centralized exchanges are really, the lion's share of actually the user adoption. It's because they understand, in depth what they are. It's a Web2 product, right? And this Web2 product, what they really understand in depth is UX. They understand how removing friction is a winning game. It's what makes you win on the long term. And so what we're trying to do, for example, in Matcha, is to try to up-level the user experience to a Web2 experience. Why is that? Because it's demonstrated to work, and it's fairly, like you know that it's a better feeling now. What Web2 doesn't have that we want to keep and preserve in Web3 is this trustless, permissionless nature of it. So what we need to understand, the end game is to up-level at the application layer the user experience while maintaining the core thesis of permissionless and trustless experience. Now, this is hard. I mean, that's why, we are working super hard on it. But I think without this fundamental understanding that you can have a fantastic product, but if at the core level, at foundation level, but if you don't build on top of it a frictionless experience, this is going to be really hard for you, right? To get into the mind share of users. You brought it up before, discoverability, abstracting, for example, the concept of gas. The industry is moving in this direction. Think about, stuff like, account abstraction. I think a lot of people think of account abstraction from a technical standpoint, but from a user standpoint, really what it is, it's a Web2 login. Of course, there is all the feature about, password recoveries and stuff like that. But really, why we're moving in that direction, it's because we know that we need to remove friction. And what is the biggest friction? That you need a wallet to be downloaded, to be compliant with the chain. I mean, this is super complex. To be honest, I understand why, we are not getting already like hundreds of millions of users in Web3. It's because we don't spend enough time on understanding that, the biggest entry wall is the user experience at this level. And that's what we stress a lot in Matcha, where, as you said, you wanted to get into the product. We want people to experience Matcha for the first time. And if you are a first-time DeFi user ever, it should feel as simple as possible, given the infrastructure and technical abilities we have today. And that's our end goal all the time, and will always be.
I could not agree with it more. And yeah, so how did people react to your announcement? Like, was it something they saw coming? Were they like, I don't know, completely surprised by this new feature? Have they adopted it well? And what usage patterns do you start seeing?
Fantastic question. So first of all, cross-chain was one of the top asks from our community. We have if you go to matcha.xyz, we have a feature board where any user can come and ask for any feature. You can upvote someone else's proposal and things like that. And we always observe what our community is asking us. And cross-chain was one of the first one. So on that side, we really listened to our user. And while it was a surprise in the sense that we kept it really in a stealth way, in that sense, on the other side, it was received really positively. Now, think about that. I was looking at the numbers this morning. We launched like maybe 5 days ago, and we can observe that around 15 to 25% of our user base, depending on the day, of course, let's call it a 20% average, okay? Our user base already did at least one cross-chain transaction. I mean, that's crazy adoption. This is definitely like, overblown my expectations. And these actually testify not only to the fact that, cross-chain, we just launched a new feature and people want to try it, but there's the real need for people to move cross-chain. Ultimately, we already, since many years, proposed a multi-chain approach in our product, and now we see that actually users were just waiting for the ability within the same product, within Matcha, to move across chains. So we see this kind of 20% adoption, which is fantastic. And then in these 5 days, we observe some interesting, pattern. I think what is known, I guess, news, if you will, is that, the top chains towards which users are, bridging into.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, are Optimism, Arbitrum, and Base. This kind of L2 where it's first of all, it's these are cheap ecosystem, accessible ecosystem, but also ecosystem with a lot of dynamism, right? A lot of projects are launching, a lot of heat. It's felt really good vibes. We also see, actually, when we look at the volume side of things, interesting enough, we start to see this pattern of user moving around capital to chase, some airdrop or some farming, some opportunity. We can see, for example, as an outlier, Avalanche. It's really where users are moving a lot of capital for some potential airdrop in terms of gaming opportunity, or buying some tokens there. So in that sense, it's fascinating to see where the user really kind of trying to move across. And this is actually what we saw in these kind of past 5 days. Of course, we're gonna have to wait few weeks to get some sizable statistical significant numbers to share some more interesting patterns. For the moment, we see a good diversification of behaviors.
Yeah, there's a lot of alpha, I think, in analyzing bridge flows, and I totally agree also with we've seen that as well, that there's a more bridging volume going towards Avalanche in the last few days. So yeah, I always observe volumes and find it quite interesting to see where people move their capital to. And yeah, I think it's very super nicely executed. In terms of fees, do you charge a fee on top of sort of what the underlying bridges charge, or is it free for users?
So at the moment, it's free for users. We do not charge any fee, and we decided to do it in this way because we want the users to experience cross-chain in Matcha with the most freedom possible. Okay, we know not thinking about anything else, just experience the product, move across chain, and feel how amazing this is. And then in the future, we may think about adding fees, but in the short term, this is not in the plan. So as always, we launch. We have this kind of iterative approach, because ultimately this is the only approach that works if you want to really fulfill the needs of your users. So we launch with 0 fees, and we want to see and observe our user reaction, what they like, what they don't like, hear the community, and then decide based on this how we want to move forward.
Gotcha. By the way, that 20% stat is pretty mind-blowing. I would have expected much lower. So yeah, really cool. Let's hope that stays as high. Maybe even some of your user base is discovering sort of more L2s. Maybe they were just on one chain before, and now they're more likely to kind of bridge between chains as it's gotten more easy. But like, would love to finish on it's touching upon your roadmap. Like, what else do you guys have in store, both for like the cross chain feature, but maybe also like other features that you have planned that you would like to share with the people in the audience?
Okay. I mean, we have gone through, a lot of product launches in the past, 2 to 3 months. And we have a super aggressive, roadmap for the upcoming months. I will not actually share any specifics right now, but what I can say is that we always think about our strategy in two folds. The first one is what we have in terms of the product we have. Think about, for example, cross-chain we launched right now. It could be like, gasless product. It could be search. No matter what we have right now, we keep looking at data. We keep using interview, and we keep, coming up with ways to remove more and more friction. So this is a pattern that will continue over time. And, Matcha, I always like to say, is like an ever-changing, in the positive trend product. You can look at it, and if you are a Matcha user, you know that there are always little nuances that changes over time. That if so the best outcome of those little nuances changes will requires a lot of work in the back, but feels like nothing. From a user standpoint, is that you kind of don't really see it. You just feel that it's becoming simpler and faster and frictionless and things like that. So this, we're gonna keep doing that and improving all our flows. Cross-chain is one of those. We're gonna look at the upcoming weeks. Whatever we feel is something we need to improve, we're gonna do it. We're gonna go and do it. And then the second fold, our strategy is always like to how we can increase our value proposition. So cross-chain was going into this direction. And then we're exploring ways to actually, again, increase and expand our portfolio of features so that we address need that actually user now needs to go somewhere else, right? That is, we want to bring in Matcha so the user doesn't have to really increase the stress level of going somewhere else, having multiple tabs, going back and forth between different products. So just expand our portfolio. It's the other fold of our strategy. I tell to anyone, wait for, follow us on Twitter, and wait for our announcement. We are super excited and pretty aggressive in the way we approach launches, and expect some amazing things.
Amazing. Yeah, knowing that you kept this feature under wraps, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of other amazing things in the pipeline that we'll hear about soon. I'm personally gonna definitely move the lion's share of my bridging through Matcha, so expect my volume at least in addition. Thanks so much for the space. I'm really looking forward to the rest of, or the future of our partnership, and to see this feature becoming better and better over time and grow together. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, everyone.